systemically this culture of exclusion, this culture of discrimination, this culture of, let's say, office offsites. Being one example in the pre-pandemic years, at least, being the site of a lot of sexual harassment taking place. It hasn't fundamentally shifted in India.
The nature of Indian society to begin with, okay? When you compare it to a more liberal democracy, where if not everything, some things work. Let me give you the United States of America. The legal system works. We are a stratified society, okay? Hierarchy is the norm. And even if you see the way these atrocities or this harassment occurs, what we call sexual harassment, there is always a hierarchical relationship, almost always. We've had an example in this country of a Chief Justice being accused of sexually harassing an employee. Look at that, okay?
Correct. And he's now in the Rajya Sabha.
He's now in the Rajya Sabha. And it doesn't concern me whether the relationship was consensual or not. What concerns me is that happened at the workplace. And the other, I think, is there is a certain dysfunction which has set into the functioning of the Indian legal system. It's almost dysfunctional. It's almost moribund. Apart from the fact that it's too expensive to access. So all this has a completely chilling effect on women who might even consider going to court. Look, in the United States of America, there is also what I call a culture of settling an issue. I have handled the case of a woman, an Indian woman, who faced sexual harassment from the boss. And the legal officer of the multinational company based in the United States of America told her, put me in touch with your lawyer. And she took a decision to advise the company to sack the managing director. The case didn't even go to court. And then they settled with her. She had her own demands. She wanted rehabilitation. She wanted to get a job in another branch of the company, in another country. All that they agreed to. What I would like to see is a policy enacted by all employers, okay, that they will support the women working in their organization who face domestic violence. And how will they support them? They will first of all have a counselor on board in office to whom a woman can talk freely about the domestic violence she's facing at home, will guide her what kind of facilities are available for her. And very importantly, when we get orders for, financial relief for women from courts, it's impossible to execute that order. Now, what I would like to see is employers coming, a law where employers come on board and they say, look, we'll deduct from the salary and give it to the wife. Okay, there are multiple ways of helping people if you want to. The will is lacking.
There is a perception that crimes against women happens when they step outside of their domestic boundaries, but we have the data which tells us very emphatically that the home is not the safest place. That 1 in 3 women face violence from a family member.
During the pandemic, when there was a lockdown, the frequency of violence against women had actually increased. But what you are talking about is that the narrative in the public domain that this happens because women step out is what women have called myths. But I prefer to call them the backlash. It's really intended to push women back into the home. And I have also noticed in my own perception, in my own life, that the more quote-unquote successful you get, and I don't I don't want to emphasize the word successful, but the more experience you get, the more you advance in your career, the greater the discrimination you will face.
Did you face
Yes,
discrimination?
I did.
And would you like to talk about it?
I can tell you how it manifests. I haven't understood it fully as yet, but I think it manifests in the form of exclusions. And for two reasons. One is because as working women, we don't really believe in networking in all male networks. Networks are still all male, and it's no fun. I'm vested in my work, but I'm not networked in my work. And that results in all kinds of forms of exclusion, which then have a negative impact on you psychologically and in every other sense of the word.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I think eventually cutting across class, caste, community, religion, socio-economic status, what women want is justice. And it's important, so no matter, yes, going through due process is painful, but ultimately, till we find a better way, that is the only way.
You're so right, because sometimes what a woman wants when it comes to justice is just simply an acknowledgement and an apology. And that is not forthcoming.
Absolutely. Looking back at your career, what are the cases closest to you?
Look at this ordinary case, a woman facing domestic violence. It so happened that her husband was a politician, and because of that, he was in a position to dominate her. And it was difficult for her to get a decent separation. All I did was represent her and got a separation, and she got a divorce. Now, at that time, her daughter was no more than 9 years old. You won't believe it. I met this daughter of hers very recently. She went on to become Miss India. I was totally impressed by her because she said in so many words to me. She said, would accompany my mother when she would come to see you, and my mother was so afraid of you because she would say, "Look at Miss Jaising, she is so aggressive in her interaction with me." And this little girl would tell her, "But Ma, when she talks to me, she's not like that." So, and she said to me that she was actually influenced by the way in which I was handling her mother's case. If you ask me for my highlights of my career, it's going to be very difficult to answer saying, oh, it was the Shabrimala case or the Saira Banu case, though those were very exciting cases. But at the end of the day, it's just about that one person whose face I can still see and who says, I'm leading a better life today.
What keeps you going? What gives you hope?
I believe in the rule of law. And regardless of what people may say, that, oh, our courts are corrupted, and oh, our courts have given up, and oh, the executive is dominating the judiciary. But I believe in myself, and I believe in my ability to articulate the values of the Constitution. So if you ask me what keeps you going, you spoke earlier about a generation of people who were there when the Constitution was written. I was not there when the Constitution was written, but I was coming of age at a time when, the values of the Constitution were part of our everyday life. And I've grown up with people around me who used to just talk about those values, about the dominance of the public sector, about how services have to be provided, about how social and economic rights have to be implemented. And that was what I chose for my career. And I think it keeps me going till today.